you manage a rental property and your tenant hasn't paid rent, and it's now the 5th, the 6th, the 9th, the 10th. So stay tuned and we'll kind of walk through how we handle this. Again, I'm BJ with Real Property Management. We manage rental properties in Howard County, Maryland, and also DC. So we're going to discuss how to do this in Maryland. So number one is tenants will tell you a lot of stories. Tenants will tell you, their car broke down or their paycheck didn't arrive, all these things, right? And we're good people. We want to believe them and we want to help them because maybe they've paid rent on time constantly, or we kind of know their situation. But the problem is we got to follow the lease. It's fine to believe them, but you also got to follow the lease because you got to protect yourself. This is your investment, your property, and every day that rent goes unpaid can cost you a lot of money. So the first thing you need to do, I'm going to walk you through a few steps. Number one is you need to give them or serve them a 10-day notice to pay or quit. So in Maryland, it's typically 10-day. In DC, it's 30. They're actually talking about making it 10, but I still believe it's 30. But you're looking at a 10-day notice to pay or quit. So you need to make sure you do this electronically. So we typically mail this to their house, certified mail. We're also going to send them an email, and we might even post it on their door depending on kind of the situation. But you want to make sure it's documented the day it was sent. And this basically states, hey, you owe me X rent, and you add in, if they've missed 2, 3, 4 months, add in the rent plus the late fees. This rent needs to be paid within 10 days or you quit, okay? So basically that's your first legal notice that once that's served, you can now, if they don't pay within the 10 days, you can then actually go to district court and file for a court proceeding, right? So that's typically $50, I believe. At this point, we would bring in a lawyer because we want to make sure it's done correctly. Sometimes you miss a step here or there, maybe you miss the way you posted it or something spelled incorrectly, it can be thrown out. So we typically hire an attorney for this. It's going to cost you a couple, $300 for them to file this and actually attend court, and it's well worth his money. But basically, you want to give them a 10-day notice, and you want to do this. We would do this by the 6th typically, and that way by the 16th, if they haven't paid, we now can file. What this does is a couple things. It lets your tenant know you're serious, but it also starts the clock. Starting the clock is the most important because the longer you wait and the more you kind of listen to their story and they haven't something else that comes up, it just drags this further and further along. And then before you know it, it's now the next month's rent's due and they still haven't paid, right? We always get these tenants trying to make payment arrangements. Oh, I'll pay you on Friday this much. That's fine. And you should agree to that and say, yes, let's do that. But this 10-day notice is still in effect, okay? So the next thing is first the 10-day notice. If you want to accept a partial payment, so say the tenant owes you $2,000 plus late fees, and 5 days in, they bring you $1,000. And if you accept that without actually a notice or something written saying, hey, you still owe me X, that could reset the clock on your 10 days. So you got to be careful about that. What we typically would do is we would turn off online payments from that tenant, and we would say it needs to be pay in full, or we'll see you we're going to file in court, right? Because if we accept a payment, you could be making an agreement for a payment plan, a non-verbal agreement typically. So you're looking at your 10-day window. As soon as they're late, you want to file a 10-day notice. If they don't pay in full by that 10 days, you should be hiring an attorney or going down to the district court and filing on that. And then you're going to have a court proceeding within a couple of weeks where they're going to show up, you're going to show up, and then you're going to be in front of a judge that helps settle the situation and give you the steps moving forward, okay? So again, we even hire process servers a lot of times for the 10-day notice just because it varies. DC is very strict about this. Howard County is not as strict, but it's going to be like that pretty soon. They want to make sure you try to serve them multiple times at different times, right? So let's say you went Monday at 4 p.m. and then Thursday at 4 p.m. Well, the judge might throw that out and say, well, you went by, they're always at work. You knew they're at work. So you might need to go Tuesday at 4 p.m. and Friday at 9 p.m. But you have to do something, or you maybe need to do a weekend. So it's very, very particular on how they do this. And so for us, it's just easier. Hire an attorney who knows the steps, knows the process. It's going to cost you a little more, but in the long run, it's going to save you money because if you mess up and you have to start over, you're going to be spending that money anyways. And then now you're looking at more lost rent. So number one, file the 10-day notice. Don't accept partial payment unless you have a written note, something in writing that this is only a partial payment. File at the district court after the 10 days and then attend the court hearing. Now, a couple things you should not do is don't harass the tenant. Don't go over there and remove the door. Don't just show up, right? There's some things that don't go out and try to move don't do like a self-eviction and move all their stuff out. There's a lot of stuff. These tenants have rights. They have protections. They still have access to the home even though they haven't paid rent. There is legal things you need to do to get them out for the eviction. And so you can't just go and do a self-eviction. You hear stories back in the day where landlords used to take off the front door and they'll only put the front door back on if the tenant pays, right? That is highly illegal and you'll be in a lot more trouble than they would be for the eviction. So we don't deal with a ton, but this is probably Number one call we get from landlords that are do-it-yourself landlord is they call and say, hey, I've got this guy, he hasn't paid rent for 3 months, can you help me? We'll jump in and we'll usually refer them to an attorney and then help them. And sometimes it works for that tenant to then get us. We find out that maybe the tenant's not paying rent because the landlord hasn't done maintenance or whatever, but it sometimes helps to have that third party to intervene and figure out what's going on and try to get the tenant back on track. But we still, even in that situation, if you hired us and said, hey, my tenant has paid for 3 months, we would still file that 10-day right away, serve that 10-day right away, and then we would start a court proceeding if they haven't paid in full. Again, we would involve attorneys just because it makes everything simpler. We know it's done correct. Better safe than sorry, basically. So again, I'm BJ with Real Property Management. We manage properties in Howard County and in DC. But if you're looking at tenants that aren't paying rent, give us a call. We can help. We can refer you to a good attorney that we recommend. But it's key to follow the lease and be strict but compassionate. Thanks for watching.